Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today we're going to be continuing our Space Marines chapters videos on the Raven Guard. So last time I took you through the history of the Raven Guard, so today I'm going to go over a little bit of their culture, combat doctrine and a little bit more of their background in relation to where they come from. So as I mentioned in the Raven Guard history video, the Raven Guard homeworld is Deliverance, the moon on which their fortress monastery, the Raven's Spire, is built. Now Deliverance was once known as Lycius, and it's where Corvus Corax landed as an infant and also led a revolution to free his fellow slaves as he was enslaved by the tech guard of that world, and eventually he freed the entire moon of slavery from the tech guard of the planet they orbited, that of Kaivar. Now there's not much more to say about their homeworld. It is a rather barren moon with large mineral resources, although I'm not sure how much is retained in the 41st millennium. However, it is quite low on population, so the recruitment can be a bit tricky, so I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Now the gene seed of the Raven Guard is also something I wanted to cover off here. Now as I mentioned in the last video, the gene seed of the Raven Guard was damaged by the Alpha Legion when they corrupted the gene tech that Corax was trying to use to replenish his legion after the Istvan 5 drop site massacre. Now the Raven Guard do not have the mecranoid organ, which allows them to excrete from their pores a type of fluid gel that protects them from atmospheric extremes such as heat, cold and even the void, although this ability will not last long. And they also do not have the Batches gland, which I've mentioned in several videos, and that allows them to spit a modified type of digestive acid into their opponent's faces in order to blind them, although they can use other poisons that have been processed by their body. Now these two organs are not required for a Space Marine to operate, so there is not too much damage there and it's not really noticeable. However, the melanchromic organ, which is the one that changes skin colour, has mutated so that their skin is actually almost pure white, whilst their eyes and hair becomes pure black. Now we don't know to the extent that this trait was actually inherited from Corax, or to the extent of the damage done by the Alpha Legion's damaged gene tech. All we know is that this is a uniform appearance for the Raven Guard, much as the black skin and red eyes is a uniform appearance for the Salamanders. Now moving off their genetics, we want to move on to their culture and combat doctrine. Now the Raven Guard are known for hitting weak points in enemy defences and using lightning strikes to cripple enemy critical locations. Now they are also known for using jump packs, much as their fellow first founded chapter, the Blood Angels, who are renowned for their jump pack assaults. However, the Raven Guard disdain the use of direct combat, just jumping straight into the enemy and chopping with chain blades. They prefer to hit strategic locations, jumping in with a lightning assault to rip apart the enemy critical location, then jumping away again to maximise the damage versus any damage done to them. Now the scouts of the Raven Guard are pretty typical in that they are used to scout out dropping locations and are not always engaged in direct combat. However, they will use their sniper weaponry and other weaponry in order to help infiltrate behind enemy lines and do a lot of damage, which is the Raven Guard's mantra. Now the Raven Guard also use deep strike tactics, using drop pods and thunderhawks to get where they need to be very quickly in order to persecute their conflict and end it as soon as possible. Now Raven Guard commanders do favour lightning claws and will usually use a double pair to maximise the damage they do in close combat assaults. Now another thing about Raven Guard commanders is that they are fiercely independent fighters, and it is rare for the entire chapter to fight as a whole. Although they will obey their commander, a squad will usually fight in their own manner as they see opportunities on the battlefield that they must exploit immediately, and thus cannot report it up the chain of command because by the time commanders approved of the tactic, the opportunity will have already gone. Due to their specialist combat style, the Raven Guard do not usually use heavy vehicles and tanks, although they will use land speeders and rhinos in order to get where they need to be very quickly, and they tend to try and use them on quite low power in order to stop them from being detected from great range, because of course these vehicles give off a lot of heat, and what the Raven Guard like to hide is their heat signature. In relation to their organisation, the right shoulder guard trim denotes the type of Space Marine that a Marine is. So a green trim denotes a tactical squad, a red trim is an assault squad, and a yellow trim is for devastators, although this trim can be different depending on how a person has painted their army, of course. Now following on about their organisation, the Raven Guard are a Codex chapter who generally do adhere to the Codex Astartes. However, because of the Alpha Legion's damage done to the chapter's gene seed, they are constantly losing gene seed to mutation, so fresh gene stock is required from Mars and Terra, which means that recruitment is slow as the chapter waits for their supplies, and leading to them being almost always beneath 1,000 Marines that are required by the Codex Astartes. However, in almost every other fashion, they are a Codex Astartes chapter with the same sort of layout to their squads, to their companies, and to the chapter as a whole, although it's very vague as to who their chapter master is at the current moment. Now, the Raven Guard's chapter homeworld is Deliverance, as I've said, but it does lack the population resources available, so we've been told that they do go to other planets in order to recruit Marines, although they do use Deliverance as much as possible. Now, this does mean that we don't know exactly where they recruit all their recruits from, but we do know that they do try and recruit as much as possible when they can and have the gene siege in order to try and maintain their chapter's numbers, because if they fall too far, it's possible they could actually be broken up, as some chapters have been in the past, although this is a very rare occurrence. Now, the equipment used by the Raven Guard is actually quite unique and visually unique as well, so you will usually notice a Raven Guard as being distinct from another chapter even if you can't see the colour of their armour. This is mainly because they still use quite beaked helmets, which is the Mark 6 Corvus armour and also the Mark 4 Imperial Maximus suit. Now, this is because after the near destruction of their chapter at Istvan V, the Tech Marines had to create ad hoc suits of armour, which is more Mark 5 armour, which they took from the battlefield itself. When the battle barge that saved them, the Avenger, returned to Deliverance, the Raven Guard actually received 2,000 suits of Mark 6 Corvus armour. Now, at that time, the Corvus armour had been tested by the Raven Guard because it was a lighter version of power armour and much more useful for them in their stealth role. Now, because the Mark 6 contains the name of their Primarch in its designation, the Raven Guard do feel a closeness to the Mark 6 armour and will usually try and use that version of armour beyond any other version because they feel that that is what links them to their history and to their Primarch. Now, because Deliverance orbits a Forge world, they are able to maintain quite high stocks of munitions and weaponry, and their armour is also very easily repaired because they have the resources for it. So above many other chapters, they are able to maintain their equipment, and so even though they don't have the recruits, they do have a rather large armoury that can keep them well stocked on a long campaign. Now, one final note for the Raven Guard's armoury is that their armour uses enhanced cooling systems for their power units and for their fibre bundles, which helps them blend in better with the background and also helps dampen the noise of the armour because power armour is far from the quietest of armours. This means that Raven Guard Marines are far harder to detect even by thermal means than their other Space Marine brothers, helping enhance their stealth capabilities. Now, this is everything I wanted to mention in relation to the Raven Guard at the moment. I know there are a couple of things that I've missed off, but they will of course feature in our Horus Heresy videos. So next week we'll be moving on to the Iron Hands, the last of the requested first founding chapters. Some of you might be asking where the White Scars are. The White Scars will turn up. They're going to be one of the first chapters we feature in the Imperial Guard block of videos. So we'll start with a few Imperial Guard videos, then we'll have the White Scars, a few more Imperial Guard videos, then we'll go over to another chapter, and we'll keep rolling it through. So it's likely by the end of our Imperial videos, we'll also be finishing off the chapter videos. So still request a chapter that you want because we'll still be taking votes for that. Also keep voting for the Imperial Guard unit or the Imperial Guard regiment you want to see in the upcoming videos. And if you do have any questions or any comments, do leave them in the comment section below or send me a personal message and I'll try my best to answer it. So that's everything I wanted to mention today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.